Hello and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today we are going to learn a song that I really like teaching my grade 1 students. So we're stepping it up a little bit, and it's a bourrée, which we'll talk more about what that means in a minute. This was written by Leopold Mozart, who, if you remember that name, you probably know the name Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart because he's pretty famous. He's more famous than his dad, who's Leopold. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should check out this video on Mozart's past and all that good history stuff. So the piece that we're learning today is from a collection called Notebook for Wolfgang, which was written by Leopold Mozart. So without further ado, let us dive into it. A bourrée originated as a French dance style, and it was really popular in the 16th and 17th centuries. So what it is from a style perspective is it's a simple dance, usually with a very simple rhythm, a pretty fast-paced rhythm though, and it always has an upbeat, which means it has a beat on the phrase starts on the fourth beat instead of on the first beat of each bar, which you'll see when we look at the music. You can see what that looks like. And to describe the character of a bourrée, I am going to quote Johann Mattheson, and he said, "The bourrée's distinguishing feature resides in contentment and a pleasant demeanor," even if it's in minor key, which this one might be, no spoilers. At the same time, it is somewhat carefree and relaxed. So that's kind of the vibe we're going to try to get out of this bourrée. And two composers who really wrote a lot of them, if you want to check some of them out on the internet, Bach wrote a bunch of bourrées and so did Handel. And they're two very famous Baroque composers. So there's a lot to look at in this piece. A characteristic of Baroque music is that very specific sort of detached style. So you don't want to play this piece like it's all one big slur. So really watch that you do a real break where you see a staccato or just a break in the slur, because that's what really drives the rhythm. So I'm just going to play a little bit of the first line. I'm going to articulate it the way it should be done. So with the slurs and breaks in the right place, and you can listen to that. Okay, so that kind of gives it a little bit of flair, whereas if I just play everything like a slur, it just loses all of its character. It just doesn't flow the same, it just doesn't have the same energy, so that's really important. And in the same vein, it's also really important to keep the left hand from becoming too heavy and like thunky. So thunky, like, you want to make sure your left hand, instead of just slurring everything through, thunk, thunk, you want a bit of a break in between the notes as well, kind of like this. Just a little bit of air creates a lightness in the sound as opposed to like slurring it all through, which kind of drags everything down a little bit. So let's take a look at the sheet music here. So if you look at the little breaks in here between the slurs, this is showing you exactly where you want those lifts in the sound. So practice that right from the get-go so it becomes a habit, because it's much harder to add those details in when you've already been practicing without them. So these are the kind of details that you want like right away. So no slacking off there. All right, so another thing we should be looking at here is the key signature. So we have one sharp, which is telling us it's in one of two keys. Oh, you're not allowed to look at this. Oh my goodness, giveaway answer. Okay, so the title says it's in E minor. How you would figure that out is this sharp is telling us it's either in G major or E minor. Okay, so those are our two clues. Now, how I know for sure it's in E minor without looking at the title is the very first left-hand note, it's an E. And the very first right-hand note, it's not an E, but it's a G. And that's a note in E minor chord, of which the other note is B, and there's B right there. So these three notes at the very beginning are outlining an E minor chord, which is a pretty dead giveaway. Though the rhythm of this piece is really easy with mainly just eighth notes and quarter notes, there are a lot of wide leaps and finger number changes, so heed those finger numbers very, very wisely. They are there to help you and guide you along this dark, dark journey. Don't know where I'm going with that. It's a song in E minor, so it's a dark journey. Anyways, yes, heed the finger numbers and watch out for significant leaps like this, that you're really watching what notes you're playing. Since we were just talking about binary form in the previous video, which I'll link to on the screen in case you missed it, let's look at the form of this bore. So I'm gonna just like give away the secret right now. This piece is definitely in binary form, and I'll show you how I came to that conclusion. So we'll start by labeling this section A, because A is like labeling something number one. It's the very beginning, it's the first. And then we have these little repeat dots, which is a feature of binary form. Usually you have to go back and do the A section again. And if I scroll down a little bit further here, scrolling, you'll notice that the next section, which I'm going to label B, because you can kind of see that there's some repeat dots over here. That's another feature of binary form. This is not quite the same as the beginning, but it's not wildly different either. It's in a little bit of a different key for a while, and then it eventually goes back to the original key of E minor, which is another feature of binary form. An important element of our bore is to have a really strong driving beat. So this isn't something that you're going to see in the notation as accent. It's kind of just implied, and it's something that you want to feel for. So to explain what I mean, you want to place a little bit of an accent or emphasis on the first beat of every bar, and that's going to give it a little bit of drive, and maybe even in certain spots a little bit of an accent on the third beat as well. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like with that accent. I'm going to over dramatize it just a little bit so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. So it just ends up creating a little bit more energy than when I play it with absolutely no emphasis on any beat. It sounds nice, but you don't have a clear sense of the beginning of the bar lines, and especially once you start adding in the left hand, which is usually in half notes. It's punching in beat 1 and beat 3 and really giving it that like strong rhythmic emphasis. And when you put that slight accent in the right hand together with the notes of the left hand, it creates a really good impact. Which sounds a lot more interesting than... I also did a little bit more slurring in that instead of watching for all of the staccatos and breaks. But I hope you were able to hear a little bit of a subtle difference there. I think it's really important. Hopefully you'll enjoy this piece and give it a try. It is, like I mentioned earlier, it's a grade 1 level piece, so it's maybe a little bit harder than some of the stuff we've been doing, but nothing that you can't handle. Sometimes it's good to give yourself a little bit of a challenge. So thank you for watching this video. As always, feel free to give it a like if you like the song and the video. And yeah, you can visit me at pianotv.net and keep up to date with all the goings-ons. Going-ons? It's going-ons, right? Yeah, that sounds more right than double plural goings-ons. I'm rambling. Take care. No.